Welcome back to part 2 of Module 9, Lesson 1, where we're continuing our study of the volume of rectangular prisms. We're on example 1 now, which talks about mini sugar cubes that measure a 1/4 inch on each side. That's some pretty small sugar cubes. I think the normal ones are about a 1/2 inch. The box shown is packed full of sugar cubes. So you have 3.5 inches of cubes this way, 1.5 inches of cubes that way, and 6 inches of cubes this way. And they take and want to know what is the volume of the box. Now I'm thinking they're probably going to be looking at both ways of doing this. The first one is method 1 that we covered in video 1, and then we'll do method 2 that we covered in video 1 as well. Method 1 we really don't like that much, but we're going to do it anyhow. So first thing we need to do is find the total number of sugar cubes that are going to be contained in the box. The length of that prism, or the length of the box, was 3.5 inches that you see right here. Each one of those cubes was 1/4 of the inch, and when you divided 3.5 by 1/4, that meant that there was 15 sugar cubes. Now that's going to be using the same general approach to solving it that I used in this problem right here. If you remember, I showed you how to do that in video 1, so I'm not going to waste your time showing you how to do that again. Just know that you're going to have a length of 14 mini sugar cubes in this box. The width of that box, the prism, is 1.5 inches, and when you divide 1.5 by 1/4, you get 6 using the same technique. So now we can say the width of the box is going to be 6 mini sugar cubes, and then the height of the box, that was going to be 6 inches, and 6 inches divided by 1/4, that gave you 24 mini sugar cubes high. So you have a width of 6 mini sugar cubes, a length of 14 mini sugar cubes, and a height of 24 mini sugar cubes. From there, the next thing they wanted us to do is take and figure out how much one layer is going to be. So one layer is going to be 14 times 6, otherwise known, that's going to be 60 plus 24, which is going to be 84 mini sugar cubes. And then there are going to be 24 layers of them. So we're going to take the 84 that we had for our first layer, multiply that times 24, and let's come over here and do some grunt work. We have the 84 times our 24. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 8 is going to be 16, and we add those up. That's going to give me a 6. That's going to end up giving me an 11. Carry the 1. That's going to be a 9, 10, and that will end up being a 2. So we have 2,116 sugar cubes in that box. If I did my math work, let's check it, and it checks correct. Now the next thing we're going to have to do is figure out what the volume of each one of those sugar cubes is going to be. So to do that, we're going to take and use the volume formula. Volume is, oops, hold on, no, I skipped too far ahead. I pushed the wrong button here. We're going to go right here where they said that volume is equal to side cube, because we're dealing with cubes, which meant you had 1/4 of an inch times 1/4 of an inch times 1/4 of an inch. So each one of those sugar cubes has a volume of 1/64 of an inch. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. That's your denominator. Your numerator, the number on top, 1 times 1 times 1 is going to be 1. That's where the 1/64 came in too. The last thing we have to do from there is we have to take that 2,016 sugar cubes that we came up with, that right here, and multiply it times that 1/64. To do that, I'm going to, we're going to go over here and show you the supporting work for that. We're going to have 2,016, 2016, over 1 times 1/60. Whoops, let me divide, set that right again. 64, and that's a lot to try and simplify in our heads, but we could do it. We could take and say that, well, 2 goes into 64 32 times, and 2 goes into that 1,008 times. That's both even numbers. So now I can say 2 goes into 32 16 times, and 2 goes into that 504 times. We can simplify that even further and say that 2 goes into 16 8 times, and 2 goes into that. It's going to be 252 times. Simplify it even further. I can say 2 goes into 8 4 times, and 2 goes into that. That's a little harder to do in my head. That's going to become 126. So now I'm at 4. Let's make that 4 look a little bit better there. 4 and 126. We can still simplify that further. From there, we're going to jump back over to the green color. 2 goes into 4 2 times. 2 goes into 126 how many times? That's going to become 64. Almost there. We could say that there. 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 64 32 times. So that gives us 32 over 1, which isn't very much fun getting to that way, also known as 32. Another way you could get to that is you could have just taken that 2016 over 1 times 1 over 64. That's a 4 there, which means you'd get 2016 divided by 64, and then you could have done the whole painful long division here. 2016 divided by 64. 64 is going to go into that 3 times, which is going to be 180, 192. That's going to end up leaving us with 9 left over, bring down to 6. And from there, oh, I did something wrong. Hold on. I found out my issue here. I did some bad math, and you know, sometimes when I'm doing math in my head, things go awry. So this number here should actually end up being a 186. And when I subtract, I'm going to do some borrowing. So that's become a 1, that's become a 10, which will become a 9 and a 11 there. So we have 11 minus 6 is going to be 5. 9 minus 8 is going to be 1. And we're going to bring that 6 in right here. Next thing we have to do from there is we can say, well, how many times does 64 go into 156? And the answer to that is not what it's supposed to be. Actually, I appear to have made a mistake doing my simplification, because when I divided it out, I ended up getting 31.5 instead of 32. And with that in mind, we're just going to stop right there, play with the calculator to get our answer, and jump back over here and give it that 31.5, also known as 31.5 units cubed for our final answer. Check that, and it's not right. Let's see if they want it written as a fraction instead. So I'm going to take that 31.5. I'm going to change it to a fraction, 1 over 2. Accept and check. And say check again. And now it checks 31.5, 31.5. They're both going to be the same answer. Either way, it's going to take 31.5 cubic inches of sugar to fill that box. Now that was a really, really complicated and painful way to do this. Let's use the other way. I think you're going to like it better. Now the other way, set it up using the formula, volume is equal to length times width times height. And they went ahead and gave us the length, width, and height here of 3 1/2 inches times 1 1/2 inches times 6. So let's take and jump over to our scratch page and plug those values in and work them out. So 3 1/2 inches, we're going to change that to be 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7 halves times 2 1/2 inches is 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is going to be 3 halves times that 6 over 1. From here, we're going to simplify. I'm going to say, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 6 3 times, and I'm going to multiply. 7 times 3 is 21. 21 times 3, that's going to become 63. 2 times 1 is 2, times 1 is 2 again. Finally, we're going to do some dividing here. 2 goes into 63, 31 1/2 times, which is what we're going to put in for our final answer. Jump back over to the textbook page. You can see they have 31 1/2 here, and if it makes you happy, you can put it in the box just to hear that happy tone, but I'm not going to do that because we've already proven it. Isn't that a much easier way to solve it? We did that whole problem in just over a minute working it that way, where the other way it took us, I think, 5 minutes to work the problem, and I even confused myself trying to do it. Don't you like this way better? Now it's time for you to pause the video and work on this problem where we have a packing box that is shaped as a cube. That means you have all three sides are the same length, which is going to be 1 yard. What's the volume of that packing box going to be? Go ahead and work that problem. Alright, first thing I did is I wrote my formula. You always have to write your formula. If you do not write your formula first on each and every problem of your homework like this, you're going to have done them just for fun. I'm not going to give you full credit for doing that. So, volume is equal to length times width and times height. All three of those sides are going to be the same, 1/2. So I could say from here, volume is equal to, the length is 1/2, the width is 1/2, and the height is 1/2. That means volume is equal to 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. So the volume of that packing box is going to be 1/8 of a yard. Jump back over here, type in our answer as a fraction, 1/8, and accept and check. That's all there is to doing this problem. Super quick, knocked out the whole thing in about 1 minute's time. But what if we knew the volume and we knew 2 of the 3 side lengths? How could we use that information to find out the missing side length? Let's watch this video here and find out.
The rectangular prism shown has a volume of 60 cubic feet. The width of the prism is 3 feet, and the length is 5 feet. The height of the prism is unknown. To find the unknown dimension, you can use the formula for volume of a rectangular prism. First, write the formula. Volume equals length times width times height. Next, substitute the known measurements for the variables. The volume is 60, the length is 5, the width is 3, and the height is unknown. We can use the equation 60 equals 5 times 3 times h. Now you can solve for the missing dimension. Multiply the length times the width times the height. 5 times 3 times h is 15h. Then, divide each side by 15. 60 divided by 15 is 4. 15h divided by 15 is h. h is equal to 4. So, the height of the rectangular prism is 4 feet.
Well, that was pretty easy to do, and that's exactly the way I would have worked the problem as well. That's showing good supporting work. That is what I must see. So let's take a look at this problem they've given us here, and of course they made it harder than it has to be because they included fractions and they just think y'all are little rocket scientists. But don't worry, we're going to make it happen. The volume of this rectangular prism is 94 1/2 cubic inches. That's the entire volume of it. We also know we have a length of 4.5 inches and a width of 6 inches. And I should point out, they may call them different things. They may call that the width and that the length. It just really doesn't matter. It doesn't have any effect on it at all, what you call the length and what you call the width. So from here, we're going to start off by using the formula. Actually, we're going to say drag what you know you need and what you need. With what we know the volume, we know the length, and we know the width, and the thing that we're looking for is going to be the height. That's going to be the h value right here. Moving on to the next slide, it says, here we go, the volume formula is length times width times height, and they said volume was equal to 94.5 is equal to, the length is going to be 6, the width was 4 1/2 times the height. Next thing they said is, well, 6 times 4 1/2, and they went boom without showing you any good supporting work. You kind of need to do that off to the side. That's going to give you 27 right here. And 6 times 4 1/2 is 27. And from there, they undid multiplication by dividing the 27 on both sides, which I don't like it that way. They've got a fraction and a fraction, and I just really cannot stand having fractions and fractions. So at this point, I'm going to take and do a screenshot and pull it off to my own space where I'm going to take and work that problem separately. So I'm going to take where they took and divided it vertically, I'm going to divide it horizontally. I'm going to say 94 1/2 divided by 27 is equal to 27 divided by 27 times the height. These 27s divided out, leaving the height, and on this side over here, we're going to keep, change, flip. I'm going to take and say that, now I'm not keep, change, flip yet. I got to change it in proper fractions. So 2 times 94, that's going to be 188 plus 1 is going to be 189 over 2 divided by 27 over 1. Now I get to keep, change, flip. That's going to give me 189 divided by 2 times 1 over 27, which is going to give me the height is equal to 189 over, that'll become a 54. Now we're going to go ahead and just cheat. I'm going to use a calculator because these videos have gotten a little long already. 189 divided by 54, that's going to give us 3 1/2, also known as a 3.5, so the height is going to equal to 3 1/2 for our final answer. Jump back over to the textbook page, and what did they show you right here? Height equaled the same, 3 1/2 I gave you. This is our last problem for this lesson. Go ahead and pause the video and work it on your own, and then I'll show you what I did. How did it go? The first thing you always should do is write the formula. So that's where I'm going to start, saying volume is equal to length times width times height. Next, we're going to pull out what we have. The volume is 140. That goes right here. My length, well, the width we don't know. The length we do know. The length is going to be 8 times the width times, and the height is going to be 3 1/2 yards. Now I'm going to take and use that commutative property of multiplication. You know, the one that says order does not matter when multiplying. So now I can take from there and say 140 is equal to, and that is a 4, 8 times 3 1/2 times the width, and then 8 times 3 1/2, that's going to end up being 28 times the width. When I multiply it, come off to the side to show you what I just did there in my head. 8 times 3 1/2 is the same thing as saying 8 over 1 times 7 over 2. I did the Texas thing. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. I simplified. 2 went into 2 once. 2 went into 8 4 times. And when I multiplied, 4 times 7 is 28. 1 times 1 is 1. And that's where this 28 came from here. Now the last thing I have to do is divide both sides by the 28. Those are gone. And I can come over and put that inside a house as well. 148 divided by, 140. Don't know how that changed into a 48. 140 divided by 28. Let me write that a little bit neater because I sure did mess all that up. So let's try that again. 140 divided by 28. 28 is going to go into that. I'm going to take and say 5 times. 5 times 8 is going to become 40. 5 times 2 is going to be 10, plus 4 is going to be 14. And would you looky there, the width of that box is going to be 5 units, and the unit is going to be yards. So it's going to be 5 yards. Jump back over to the textbook, plug in our 5 yards, check the answer. Took us about 2.5 minutes to solve it. That is showing your work. That is what I must see. If I don't see that on each and every problem of this type on your homework, you will of course have done it just for fun. And with that, it's time to get started on your homework. Bring any questions you have to class tomorrow.